Let's face it, you probably don't need a 10-bedroom, 5-acre mansion with a home theater and Olympic pool. So instead, consider joining the tiny house revolution. Check out 10 of the tiniest, coziest homes in the world. If you're not afraid of the water, this may be the house for you. This tiny house sits in the middle of the Drina River in Serbia. It also sits precariously on several planks of thick wood, which itself sits precariously on top of a small, clog-shaped rock. If it looks like something that could be swept into the wild river at any point, you're right. In fact, it's happened multiple times. In 1968, a group of boys went swimming in the river and decided that building a small house on this rock would be a great way to relax. The problem is their house was quickly washed away by the raging rapids of the Drina River, but they and others kept building on that rock. The current Drina house is the 6th incarnation, and thanks to the internet, the most famous. It's currently a private vacation home, so don't expect to stay there anytime soon. But if you can find your own cozy little rock in the middle of a lively river surrounded by the best Mother Nature has to offer, why not build your own tiny house on it? It may turn out to be the best place you ever lived. A Boston artist named Jeff Smith set out to create the smallest house in the world as a way to test the limits of the tiny house movement. Needless to say, he accomplished his goal. His house is only 25 square feet, and as the Boston Globe describes it, looks like a dog crate on steroids. It's lime green, 3 feet tall, has several small porthole windows made from recycled pie plates, and you can't stand in it unless you open the roof. And yet it is technically a complete house. It sports a propane-powered stove, a sink whose water comes from a refillable bottle, wheels that let you take it anywhere, and the ability to fit inside a regular-sized van if you don't feel like walking your home everywhere. As for things like heat, air conditioning, Wi-Fi, and a shower, you'll just have to do without those. When your home is barely bigger than a coffin, you have to sacrifice. Despite an extremely tongue-in-cheek video on Jeff's website, smallesthouseintheworld.com, this house is very real. If you want to stay in it, hit up Airbnb and pay Smith $55 a night. Just like that, the tiniest home in the world is yours. Until the next morning, anyway. If you're in Germany and want to get away, consider shacking up in this tiny house. It's called Seelenkiste, which is German for soul box or spirit shelter. Either way, its designers intend for it to be a retreat for those who've had enough of the hustle and bustle of daily life and want to escape for a bit. The house itself looks like an art exhibit, or possibly a giant mailbox. Technically 3 floors. The bottom is your living space, followed by a bedroom sticking out like a model in the Baby Got Back video. And on top of it all, there's a cozy study space. The soul box has no windows. Instead, you open the walls of the house itself. When the weather is so nice, you simply have to let air in. On days when the weather is not so lovely, you can simply close up everything. The best part of the soul box is how it's easily assembled and disassembled, meaning you can set up your house anywhere you like. It's like camping, only evolved. Speaking of camping but evolved, here's the Nolla cabin in Finland. It looks exactly like a tent and is about the size of a small bedroom. But more than simply being a small house for a weekend getaway, it's also perhaps the greenest tiny house you'll ever see. It is 100% emission-free. It's made out of sustainable materials such as pine and plywood. Any energy you use is generated by solar panels. There's no plumbing or running water, and the stove is powered by renewable diesel created from waste and residue. That's right, even the fuel is recycled. It's shaped like a tent to give its inhabitants the impression that they are indeed camping. Even the glass front is meant to mimic a camper waking up and unzipping their tent to see the morning light. If you're in Finland and need an Airbnb, check out the Nolla cabin. It's pretty popular though, and is booked well in advance far more often than not, so you may have to camp the old-fashioned way until your number comes up. A tiny house is one thing, but how about a skinny house? In 2009, a Polish architect named Jakub Szczesny set out to build just that, the skinniest house in the world. 3 years later, he managed just that. From the outside, it absolutely does not look like a house. Rather, it looks like a stone slab wedged between 2 other buildings. Its width measures anywhere from 92 to 152 centimeters, or 28 to 48 inches wide. Imagine living somewhere that's never wider than 4 feet. That is this house, and plenty of people do live there. They don't live there forever, however. Currently, traveling riders use the Carrot House as a temporary home while they're on the road. So if all you need is a place to crash for a few days while you ride and sleep, this house is for you. If you prefer to stretch out a bit, however, you might want to look elsewhere. This might be one of the most modern-looking tiny houses you've ever seen. Its inhabitants could not be happier with it. Expert builder and remodeler Matthew Hobbs structured this house for him and his girlfriend, Lisa Tranter. At roughly 20 feet in height, it's a lot taller than most tiny houses, and it's a lot sleeker as well. The outside is jet black with cedar trim, and the architecture is sharp and tight throughout. Its height means that, unlike with other tiny homes, you don't have to crouch in the upstairs bedroom. Meanwhile, the kitchen features all of the amenities of a regular kitchen. Every side of this house features a set of double mirrors, and there's even a his and her wardrobe. Even their cat gets the royal treatment. The back of the house features a cat run, allowing their furry friend to both play and use the litter box outside. No matter how much you adore cats, you have to admit, any house, whatever the size, is just that much better without a cat box smell inside. In short, this does not look at all like a simple wood-based project assembled from a kit purchased on Amazon. This looks more like something that would be featured on MTV Tiny Cribs, if that were ever a thing. Apparently, it's possible for a tiny house to be too tiny. That's the fate of the Key House, a house in England that's so small it's not been legally livable in over 120 years. This tiny little hut was built in the 16th century and housed people until 1900. At that point, the local government deemed it too small to live in and forced the inhabitants out. You can kind of see their point. The hut is less than 6 feet wide and only 10 feet high. It's technically 2 floors with the bedroom on top, but its cramped nature is not what the local area would consider suitable for daily human life. Since then, the Key House has served its purpose as a famous tourist destination. For a small fee, you can visit the tiniest house in Great Britain and see how its inhabitants used to live. Don't expect to take a quick cat nap, however, as the second floor is currently too unstable for visitors. You can look up and take a quick peek into the bedroom, which is still furnished as if it were the 1700s, but that's about it. In Toronto, Canada, there stands a little house around 7 feet wide and sporting a mere 300 square feet of space. It was built in 1912 by a contractor named Arthur Whedon. He noticed a small bit of unused land between 2 houses and decided, in order to use the land, I will build on it. So he did, creating a tiny little house with all the amenities of a regular abode. He wound up living there for 20 years, and it's still standing today. Inside the home, which was refurbished in 2007, you'll find a full living space, a kitchen with tables and chairs that fold up, a bedroom with a Murphy bed, and even a quaint little backyard area, which appears to be about as big as the home itself. If you want to live in such a place, it might just be for sale, but don't expect to pay tiny prices. The couple who renovated it in 2007 paid $135,000 for it. After fixing it up, they put it back on the market for $180,000. Over a decade later, its price tag would likely be much higher. It must be that prime Toronto location. You might think it tough to not just raise a family in a tiny house, but to do so while building the thing yourself. And you'd be right, that's incredibly difficult. But a woman named Macy Miller pulled it off quite expertly. Miller is a teacher and architect who decided to build her own place for her and her growing family. She did so for just over $11,000, and she created a masterpiece in the process. It's attached to a gooseneck trailer, but the house itself sports just under 200 square feet of living space. Even still, Mary created a world comfortable for not just herself, but her husband, 2 children, and a rapidly growing Great Dane named Denver. One of the innovative ways she pulled this off was to build an addition to the trailer and turn that into the kids' bedroom. This is a good idea to emulate if you decide to go the tiny house route for you and your family. If you wish to learn from the master, head over to Macy Miller's website, minimotives.com. There you can sign up for workshops and classes to learn exactly how she created her home and how you can create one just like it. If you don't have kids or a Great Dane, this will make settling into your new life all that much easier. In 2012, a Washington, D.C. artist named Jay Austen decided that he was done paying $1,200 a month for a studio apartment that he didn't like. So he decided to go mobile, tiny, and self-sufficient, beginning construction on his own home that he dubbed the Matchbox. He had a rough go of it at first. He put in his notice to his apartment, but the Matchbox wasn't ready for over a year afterward. As he put it, he spent the time between camping in an incomplete house, steadily working until all the amenities of a regular house were installed and ready to go. Once they were, he had his own little paradise. In just 150 square feet, Jay had everything he needed. A modern kitchen top, a lovely table, a loft featuring a cozy bed overseeing the rest of the house, and an induction burner for using the sun's stored energy to cook. In fact, the entire place was solar-powered and off the grid, providing a self-sustaining lifestyle those tied to the national grid can't hope for. Owing to its solar nature, the Matchbox had plenty of space to let in the sun. Its walls sported large windows aplenty, and the bed lay under a skylight that made it seem as though you were sleeping under the stars. Sadly, Austin and his girlfriend were murdered by ISIS militants in 2018 while biking through Tajikistan. They had both quit their jobs to bike around the world and be as free as Jay's Matchbox made him feel. They will be missed.